apricot seeds. And he said, and you'll get rid of them.
Just hold that steady
So,
while I introduce
he
Ed.
gave Bob a whole bag of these apricot seeds. And so he took the apricot seeds and he broke them and got the pulp out of them. He said it's the worst tasting stuff you ever tasted in your life.
I thought it
But
was poison.
he went back and you know what it is?
Getting ready
It's
for the
natural
presentation.
chemo.
Our meeting tonight, just by coincidence, I turned on my computer to see if I had any email. I had some internet connection problems today. I wasn't able to get online until sometime a few hours ago. And there was an email from the Tinney Chapel is, many of you know, is a Methodist church. And there was an email from the Methodist Communications Department, Methodist Communications. I used to be the conference communications chairman for the conference, and was also Tinney Chapel's communications chair for a long time. I still do that work, but I don't carry the title anymore. I still get these emails from the communications in the conference. And it said that we're almost ready in the Methodist Church to talk about Native American ministries. We always have a Native American Sunday. So, I don't know, I guess it's coming up soon. I didn't read the email, I just noticed the headline on it. That it's time to start thinking about Native American ministries. So I'll read that when I get home and find out what it's all about. Ronnie will remember, and maybe some of the rest of you, some years ago we had a lady from and her husband, both were Native Americans, who and they were working with the North Texas Conference Native American Ministries program, and both of them were Native Americans. And they came down and put on a nice program for us. But that's been close to 10 years ago, I guess, Ronnie, something like that.
He's died since then.
He died. She's still living and still functioning in that capacity. But anyway, tonight, maybe before I introduce tonight's speaker, I'll just say we are now out of programs. This program tonight that Ed is going to bring us, it's the last one that we have scheduled, that we know about. So let me just say right up front that we need a program for next month. We need those of you who are thinking about doing a program, wish you had done a program before but had never got around to it, or have thought about something you'd like to research because you're interested in it personally and would like to research it and tell the rest of us about it. Let me just ask outright right now, is anyone who is here tonight got anything like that on their mind right now? Is there something going on with somebody that either one of you would like to think about researching over the next month and maybe presenting the next program?
Really, it doesn't take much, because last month they needed somebody and I said, I'll do it, and I had no idea what I was going to do. But all it does is take a little time, a little research, and you come up with a pretty good program.
Best thing I know to do is read it out of the book. And this right here, the first chapter, tells about the Texas Cherokees. It's a pretty neat book. Huh?
Yeah, but we haven't got time for the whole book.
No, this is just a chapter. I just read this while we was sitting at the hospital there. About 20 pages, and it talked about how Chief Bull, where he came from and all that, and it talked about dragging canoe on up. And it didn't get into when he was, not in the first chapter, does it get into when he was killed and all that. But this is a pretty neat book.
Okay, now we've had some really good pep talks here. Several people have told us how easy it is to do this. Does anyone want to think about coming up with a program for next month?
How many of you have seen my pine needle basket? You did?
No, I am.
Haven't? You haven't? You did, didn't you?
I saw, she said she
Yeah.
had, I think she seen it one did. saw her pine needle last.
Oh, I love, yeah, well, I've seen it here and I've seen it at your house. And you wouldn't let me take it.
I know. But if there's anybody who would be interested in, I could show you how to make
I'd be
a pine
interested
needle
again.
basket. Huh?
I'd be
Again?
interested again.
You would?
Like, we
Okay.
bought a book on pine needle basket after that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna ask for the third and last time, is there anybody who's gonna volunteer to do that for next month?
She said she would.
I'll do the pine needle basket.
Repeat,
Pine needle basket. Teach how to do pine needle
what is
basket.
that word, starts with a P that you're saying?
Pine.
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 A pine
Pine
tree.
tree.
You know, pine needles.
Back in
fall
back-
Oh,
apart.
back-
pine,
pine
you're
needle.
saying pine needle, I couldn't hear what you were saying.
Mm,
A
okay.
pine needle basket, okay, that sounds like a good idea. Okay, pine needle basket, from, Linda Fox next program.
Yes.
Okay? Now,
Okay.
those of you who got your minds rolling, and be thinking, because we'll be looking for something the same time next month, we'll be looking for another program. So come with your ideas ready. And tonight, we don't know exactly, or he hasn't shared with me. Last month, we ran out of the pre-scheduled programs that Linda and I and some others had managed to talk people into. We had about 5 or 6 months of programs that we pre-scheduled, and they all went very well. We ran out last month, and I asked the same question last month, and Ed volunteered. Of course, I wasn't surprised because Ed and Ellie, probably have been to more Native American events than all of the rest of us put together, and have amassed a huge collection of Native American art and artifacts in their home, and they kind of live this, this is, I think, embedded in their DNA. They're truly Native American aficionados, and I don't know your ancestry or anything, but I suspect, you guys have maybe the greatest appreciation for it of anybody in the organization. Ed Page will now give us his mystery program, Native American Fellowship.
Okay.
First off, I'd like to start out on what he was talking about, the Methodist Church and the Native American Sunday. For 15 years in Tennessee, Ellie was, and I was her assistant, was our church's Native American representative. And twice a year in Nashville, they had a conference, and how many? 150, 200 people there. They had big turnouts. And twice a year there was a Sunday dedicated to Native Americans. The church took up a collection. What was wild, Tennessee does not have any kind of Indian reservation. But the Methodist Church in Tennessee is real big on supporting the Native Americans. And when we first came here, the first thing I did was question them. I said, when's Native Americans? They didn't know what I was talking about. And
We do it here at Tinney Chapel.
huh?
We do it here at Tinney Chapel.
Do you? Well, we're going to try and get something going in downtown Williamsburg. We need something. And we need all of the exposure we can get. Last month, Joe Dan says, okay, who's going to give a program next month? Nobody said anything. I says, oh, I will. I'll come up with something. So we're going to start out one way, but the main guest is just a brief rundown on the 7 clans of the Cherokees, and a little bit of their history. For centuries, the Native Americans passed down their history Now in Europe and all, they had written history, but the Native Americans didn't. So consequently, over years, like, okay, you stop and think of what our parents lived, what they did, how they lived, and how we live now. The things they did and their enjoyment and the way they live is in a bygone area. We don't even think about how they live. I mean, that's history. And a lot of the Native American history was lost the same way as things progressed down. Especially after the white man came, the Native American history changed drastically. And a lot of the history was lost. And so, anyway, we're going to start with that. And I'll be reading most of this because my memory isn't going to, my age doesn't remember all this stuff. And it starts out, in ancient times, the Cherokee culture was preserved and passed on to each generation through ceremonies and oral stories. It was an informal process that incorporated changes slowly and naturally over the ages. Cultures change as new generations bring new ideas and new interpretations. Cultures are influenced by their natives, by changing climate, by changing food sources, war, and political influences. Today we have but hints and whispers of the ancient Cherokee culture. So much has vanished under the influence of the European explorers and colonists that the formation of the European American governments, pressures and influence from foreign culture forced the Cherokee to examine what had once been a natural progression and introduced a conscious effort of preserving their culture. Now, one of the best things is when Sequoia invented the syllabary and they got to where they could write and started recording a lot of their history. And that was really a big plus. Now the Cherokee spiritual development had 7 levels. Each clan was responsible for one level of this development. And I'm going to say these words, but I know good and well I'm not pronouncing them right. It's known as the Ani Katani, or the achievement, which means the achievement of spiritual balance. Yanakawi represents the balance between the spiritual forces that shaped and guided human spirit on its journey and development through its life preparation for entry into the spirit world. And that's another thing, the Native Americans, they had their belief, and actually, if you really study on it, they were Christians. I mean, they didn't have God as we know and Jesus as we know it, but they had they knew there was somebody beyond this earth that was responsible.
Higher power. Higher power.
Huh?
Higher power.
Yeah, higher power. And of course, being a member of the Anikawi didn't mean you were limited to that level of development, just that your clan was responsible for the level and its rituals and ceremonies. But the clans participated in each of the clan ceremonies equally and strove to achieve all 7 levels. The Cherokee, I'll give a brief rundown on each clan, but each clan was responsible for a certain thing. And they were experts at it. This clan was an expert at this. Now this clan learned all they could from this, but they not gonna. And they learned from the other 6. And they knew about everything. Like I've seen you do the beadwork, and I know how it's done. There ain't no way I've studied you, and there's no way I could even attempt to do what you do, but I know how it's done, so that's kind of how we learn. The simple division of the Cherokees formed by the grand work of by which marriages were regulated and murder was punished. A Cherokee would marry into any of the clans except two. That which belongs to his father belongs, for all of his fathers, and for all that clan are his father's aunts, and that which his mother belongs to are all his brothers and sisters. So you could marry into any one of 5 clans, but you couldn't marry into your own or the one your father came from. This is the 7 clans of the Cherokee. And if anybody's interested, that's the 7 clans in order. And I'm going to have the other Eddie here help me with them pronunciations.
Yeah, right.
2 heads are better than one, you know that.
Okay. Now there's 7 clans in the Cherokee Indian Nation. And it's important to know this because they are not allowed to marry inside their clan. The women are the head of the household in the Cherokee, so membership is attained through the mother. The members within a clan are considered brothers and sisters. Now, originally there was 14 clans in the Cherokee. And 7 clans didn't go along with the, they were kind of renegade and they wanted to do their own thing most of the time, so they was kind of kicked out. And they wouldn't go along with the laws and customs, so they were driven out of the nation. Now those expelled clans formed tribes we now know as the Erie, Mohawk, Onondaga, Cayuga, Seneca, and Oneida. And it is taught among the Chickamauga that all clans are part of the Bear Clan. So if you're Cherokee, you're part of a Bear Clan.
What did you read just before that?
Huh?
What was it you named just before that?
Those were the,
Did you say Chickamauga? Is that what you said?
but the Chickamauga is,
That's my tribe.
yeah, well, that's Cherokee.
Yeah, that's exactly my tribe.
What I was gonna say was our friend that lives in Tahlequah, his mother was the, of course, they carry the lineage, I guess, on from the mothers. And he said his mother was like a Bear Clan, which is one of those that, did they split off, or was that the Bear Clan?
No, they're all 7 clans are considered
The Bear.
the Bear Clan.
Oh, okay.
It's like the Bear Clan, and then you got your 700.
Because that's what he told us, his mother was.
So this list right here, the first one, you said it goes 1 through 7. The first clan is the most dominant, or?
Well, what? No.
Because it says Anahuia. Anahuia means the principal people.
Oh, okay. Now I'm fixing to explain that.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
The 7 clans that remained are known as the Gaia, or the 7 Clan Society. Now the first one, that's the one you're talking about. Can you hear me without a speaker?
I can, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, if you can hear me, that's all that matters. I want to make sure you hear me.
I heard you.
Okay, now the Wolf Clan, that's the first one. And it's all you did, is the largest and most prominent clan. That's what she was talking about. They provide most of the war chiefs, and they're the keeper and the tracker of the wolf. They're the only clan who can kill a wolf, though, and that through special ceremonies and medicines. It is their responsibility to develop, maintain, and teach the knowledge of loyalty, protection, and security. They have the ability to keep up to date on intelligence on the surrounding environment, to function as part of the group while maintaining their own individuality and the wolf and its habitat. Now, the clan color is red, their wood is hickory, and their flag is red with white stars. Now, number 2 is a anna something, which is a small bird, or sometimes called the eagle clan, but it's usually referred to as a
That
small
was where mine was.
Huh?
Part of mine was the bird clan.
The bird clan. The small bird clan rests in the north of the Chickamauga stomp ground. Members of this clan are keepers of the birds, sacred feathers, and bird medicines. They are very skilled in using blowguns and snares for bird hunting. These clan members are the messengers of the Cherokee Nation. They are responsible for teaching the importance of recognizing the whole pattern of life regarding positive and negative events. They teach keen observation, sharing and giving, interpretation of dreams, the birds, interpretation of their messages, and the willingness for self-sacrifice for the sake of the two-legged one. They are the ones responsible for collecting feathers earned by others because they are the only ones authorized to collect them. Their color is purple, their wood is maple, and their flag is blue with red stars. And long, sometimes called the long hair, or the twister clan. The members of the twister clan are also known as the long hair. Wait a minute, I missed one. Yeah, the deer clan. That's how I say, wait a minute. Yeah. Okay. The Anakawa is the deer, or sometimes called the bison clan. And that clan represents peace. I'm going to tell you. Yeah. The bird clan represents the spirit. And the deer represents peace. These clan members are the keepers of the deer hunters and trackers, tanners and seamers, and keepers of the deer medicine. They reside in the northwest of the Chickamauga stomp ground. They are known as fast runners and foot messengers, delivering messages from village to village and person to person. They also maintain all sports and sports equipment. It is their responsibility to teach the knowledge of relaxation and unconditional love. They also teach of the deer and its habitat, including its willingness of self-sacrifice in order to provide the two-legged ones with food and clothing. Their color is brown, the wood is oak, and the flag is purple with yellow stars. Now we're to the twister and long hair, which represents day and night. The members of the twister clan are also known as long hair, hanging down clan, or the wind clan. The word Galahi is short for an ancient, and this word here, I'll spell it. Gitlvgvnahita. I'm not going to try to print it. But that means something that grows from the back of the neck. They reside in the south of the Chickamauga stomp grounds, and members of this clan wore their hair in elaborate hairstyles, walked in a proud and vain manner, twisting their shoulders with each step, hence the name the Twister clan. The peace chiefs wore white feather robes. The clan's responsibility is to teach traditions, spiritual knowledge, and intuition, Many old spiritual priests came from the clan. It is sometimes referred to as the stranger clan because prisoners of war, orphans from other tribes, and others that no Cherokee tribe were willing to adopt into their clan, they took them in. Their color is yellow, their wood is beech, and the flag is black with white stars. Now the Anasahoe, which is the blue or blue holly clan, which represents the sky. Members of the blue clan are keepers of all children's medicines and caretakers of the medicinal herb gardens. They reside in the southwest of the Chickamauga Stomp Ground. They become known for a medicine that came from a bluish plant called the blue holly, ultimately being named after it. They're also known as the panther clan or wildcat clan in some regions. Their responsibilities include teaching the knowledge of the panther and its habitat, truth, ability to balance power, intention, physical strength, grace, and growing, preparing, and using herbs for food and medicine. Their color is blue, their wood is ash, and their flag is blue with white stars. Yanagagui, the wild potato, or sometimes called a tobacco plant, which represents the flesh. Members of the wild potato clan are known as farmers, gatherers of the wild potato plants in swamps and along streams to make flour and bread. They reside in the south of the Chickamauga Stomp Ground. Their responsibilities include teaching the knowledge of insight, introspection, gathering, growing, and preserving food, and providing shelter. They also teach of the bear and habitat and bear's willingness to self-sacrifice in order to provide food and clothing for the two-legged one. This clan may also have been known as the Bear Clan. They are nurturers by nature and gatherers. According to the Chronicles of Oklahoma, they were originally known as the Katua clan. Their color is green, the wood is birch, and the flag is yellow with green stars. And the seventh is the red paint clan, excuse me, which represents death. The people of the red paint clan, or paint clan, were also known as the corn people. They reside in the southeast of the Chickamauga Stomp Ground. Members of this clan made red paint. It's a name this long, which means sorcerers and medicine men, and the wise men traditionally came from this clan at one time in our history. This clan is the smallest and most secretive of the groups. Their responsibilities include teaching the knowledge of life, birth, death, and regeneration. They also teach of things kept hidden. Second sight, illusion, including ceremonies, rituals, and tools needed for these aspects of the Cherokee life. They're the only ones allowed to make a special red paint and dye used for ceremonial purposes and warfare. This clan is known for their prominent medicine people and their conjurers. Their color is white, their wood is locust, and their flag is black with red stars. And in conclusion, that each clan is controlled by an elected woman and by elders of both genders. The women were given the responsibility because they were the ones who stayed home with the babies and assured the continuity of the family and clan. Because of this, all property belonged to the women, and the children belonged to the mother's clan. It was also the woman who inherited the field rights, which were handed down from mother to daughter. It is the responsibility of each clan to judge and execute any punishment of any did not and cannot make laws and social customs. All laws and customs were made by them. And it we which means the people, or evolved from ancient acceptance. All religious laws were handed down, and the Cherokee believed religion was really a big, large part of life. Now, the Cherokees have 4 sacred colors. Red, which stands for east, success, and triumph. White, which is south, peace, happiness. Blue, which is north, defeat and trouble. And black, which is west and death. And that's my talk.
I'm wondering if, you know, she being Choctaw, you know about the clans of the Choctaw?
Not really. After the removal, they didn't say a lot about clans, but I've been writing some to Louisiana Choctaw, and they had a list of clans. And I thought that was really interesting. So it's like they continued on with the clans in Louisiana, but they didn't once they removed to Oklahoma. There's a few mention of clans when you read some of the Mississippi testimonies and things like that, but not a lot. It's kind of missing.
I had some more information for my family, and I couldn't figure out something, but my double great grandmother or something, she was of the Bird clan, but you follow the woman's line. So I don't know what we don't know what clan would be what, but they ended up coming to Texas, and she was 3/4 Cherokee, because my grandmother married a white man, and then their kids became half-bloods, and then one of them's sons married a full Cherokee, and their daughter became my double great grandmother. She became 3/4 Cherokee, and we found in there where she didn't have could not write, so she has her marks and X where they moved into Longview, and so we now have all the lineage that far back. But and then I found they was talking about another chief or something, and I wondered about Smith in Cherokee up in Oklahoma. He was the chief, principal chief, Smith. And,
Oh, yeah.
and they're well, I don't want to lose my mind here. But it was, I couldn't figure out something, and I was going to ask y'all one of these days. My double great mother's name was Susanna Springfrog, and I have the picture of him and everything. And then it showed another one, his burial place in Oklahoma, and his name was Smith Corn Tassel. And Chief Smith right now his name was Corn Tassel, and I couldn't figure out why, if they had a word that was a bird clan, where a corn tassel came from. And I can't figure all that out.
Didn't they call him the Tassel?
Uh-huh.
I've seen that where they.
And it had his picture and the corn tassel, and I don't know if it's, I don't know, I'd like to find out some of that like that.
I found out a whole bunch of stuff about, well, according to some of the books that's written in, like this one here, it's pretty interesting. During the first chapter of this, the last part of it, talked about in time, Texas Cherokee joined by other Cherokees from the United States, the noted chief Tache, or Dutch, one of the first Cherokees to immigrate to Arkansas from the old Cherokee Nation east of the Mississippi was one of them. He opposed a treaty in 1828 and spent a few years with Chief Bowles in Texas. He led war parties against wild tribes during his stay in Texas, and then he returned to the United States and continued to warfare against the Osages, because they were having a lot of intertribal warfare. And they also had Comanches, all kinds of people. And he said, finally made peace with the United States government and became a loyal scout. But down here, then it talked about how a lot of the people in Texas, what it's composed of, the Texas Cherokee formed a loose confederacy with other refugee Indians, including Shawnees, Delawares, Kickapoos, Choctaws, Biloxi, Alabamas, and Cochats, whatever. The Texas Cherokee were the largest and most important band, however, and Bull was regarded as the chief and principal man of them all. So this people you had in Longview, they all came within that somewhere. According to this. But this is really interesting here. This is also how Sam Houston also kind of sponsored Bull and
Well,
Mark.
you're gonna be a program coming up?
Well, that's the one I was talking about, this first chapter.
He just started reading it, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you could after
Yeah.
mine, you could do it, have enough of it ready.
But this is all the Texas Cherokees, all about the Texas Cherokees. There's the Natchez, people went out there. It was a really good book, and these people did a lot of things. John Reagan was the guy that, through his memoirs, because he knew Bull, he knew Chief Bull. Also, the sword that was given to him by
Sam Houston.
by Sam Houston,
Yeah.
is in the Tahlequah Masonic Hall. And
They
so-
brought it, we've been there to some meetings,
Yeah,
and, they brought the sword down there.
yeah. Well, that's what this guy was talking about. But anyhow, it's a good book to read. It's not very long and it's really entertaining. I mean, and they were good
But you
people.
didn't realize that there are so many tribes in
Yeah.
Texas. They were where Chief Bowes had
Yeah,
everybody, but they were all
right.
different tribes.
Right. Well, the Chickamaugas were composed of a whole bunch of people that just wouldn't sign the treaty.
Yeah.
And Dragon Canoe, he was the first war chief, and his father, Kula, he was a peace chief, and he was taken back to England to King Henry II, and they were saying, and that was Dragon Canoe's father. And Dragon Canoe said, hey, you guys are like a bunch of old women. You're gonna get messed over by these people if you don't,
Yeah.
And they fought on the British side too in these days. So, it was interesting.
Well, when I came back from my naming ceremony, there had to have been at least 7 or 8 different tribes that were at that same meeting. It was a large gathering of people. And all of those different tribes are actually, well, how did they teach? I took 2 weeks of lessons about our tribe, but when the tribe started originally with Dragon Canoe, who's the son of Kula, like you said. So he was the leader of the major group, which was people from all kinds of tribes that didn't want to go in the Trail of Tears. They were all people who wanted to flee and be safe. So the first place they went to was the Chickamauga River. That's why our tribe's name is the Chickamaugas, because I'm from the original Dragon Canoe group. And then like the bowls down here and all of those are different parts of it. There's Iroquois, Kickapoos, Delawares, the Seminoles. It was just a mass of all kinds of different people from different tribes. It's what the Chickamauga is about. It was a all those people got together. And as they fled, from time to time, one of those groups would go off by itself, and then another one go off by itself. So it kind of bled back into the way it was before they all gathered into the Chickamaugas.
Where was
So-
this place that they thought they were going to go where they were all be safe?
The Chickamauga River. And they wanted to be saved by the one you're talking about, I bet you is down here at Bowles.
Oh, you're talking about
Are you
in
talking about
Texas?
in Texas?
Yeah.
Yeah, in Texas, that's Bowles.
Well, you know what?
Yeah, that might
As far as that's concerned, this right here gives a map of Bowles, Chief Bowles first, village was in north of Nacogdoches. Okay, what we call this time Nacogdoches. Let's see the last Cherokee Nation. This guy that visited Cherokee country and interviewed by old timers in the area. Some of them had been living there half a century or more. With their help and that of the Texas map dated in 1835 to 36, he was able to determine Bowles' first village north of Nacogdoches. It was in William Reeve survey on Cheney Creek, Russ County, about 9 miles north of Henderson, Texas. It was probably the best known, most stationary Cherokee village ever established in Texas. Houston sent mail to Chief Bowles at the village in 1835 and later addressed the chief in care of Cherokee Nation. No doubt this was the village visited by Houston and Forbes, it would be Sam Houston, February 1836, and the treaty with Chief Bowles was signed, see chapter 6 here. But pioneer settler pointed out the site of another Cherokee village in Waldert, that's W-O-L-D-E-R-T. The village was on the Prue League along the east side of Bowles Creek, where it flows in the old Blackwell property east of Arp, Texas. It remained one of the peach orchards planted by the Cherokee was still standing, and this is current. Joe White, a resident in the vicinity, told Waldert that just before his grandfather, Jesse Chambers, came to Texas in 1835, he met Bowles at Shreveport, Louisiana. The chief was selling lead, which he carried by pack train. It was thought that a stone ruin still standing along Bowl Creek had been used as a smelter. Whether the Spanish government had given Chief Bowles permission to move into Texas is debatable. Marabu B. Lamar wrote, "It is obvious for the cursory extermination of their history that the immigrant tribes from the United States have no legal or equitable claim to any portion of the territory, that their immigration to Texas was unsolicited and unauthorized." He's the guy that told them only good Indian is a dead Indian, and that was Lamar. But the others, Austin, Sam, Houston, Austin, they were making good for him, but Lamar came on. But anyhow,
Yeah, and
I don't know too much about it, but this book has got a lot of
what Gary mentioned a while ago, Onawia, when I was taking my classes, Onawia was translated as the principal people. And
Yeah, that's what it says there, the people.
Right,
yeah.
right.
And then the other thing was, you said something else, and I remember learning about that too. I crammed a lot in 2 weeks when I was back here.
Yeah, it's the people. I wanted to make sure I got that in.
Yeah. And then before that, I remember something else. Before they were called the principal people, they were called the people of the caves, was their first name. The Cherokees, the original Cherokees. Their first name was the people of the caves given to them by the Iroquois. And then it was later changed to Onawia being the principal people.
What you're talking about, there's a lot of that in this, and I'm just trying to find this stuff. But they talk about the cave people and all this. Those were some of the people that went over the hill, the overhill Cherokee, and they hid because they didn't want to sign no treaty, and they were hunted down by Jackson, the president.
Andrew Jackson.
Well, his force, actually it talks about this right here. It says, well, if you start out, it's all put
You don't
in
have to
there.
read the whole thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to find.
We'll be here all night.
Now, Andrew Jackson. Okay.
He's gotten really excited over this because he's
Well,
starting
I
to
mean,
find
there-
things that
well,
we've
there's
talked
nothing.
about over and over.
Tennessee rivers, okay, Chickamauga Creek, where, first off, where the, oh, here we go, Andrew Jackson died. When old chief, now, talks about this settler, there's a man by the name of Junaluka, Chief Junaluka saved Andrew Jackson's life. Because during the French Indian Wars, they were being overrun, and his people, he had 500 warriors, he killed the guy that was getting ready to clobber Jackson. And Jackson later on, was the Waterloo of his tribe. He says, I would have never saved his life if I knew what he was gonna do. Okay, and, it talks about, I saw the mystery. Heartbreak, okay. When old Chief John Luska of the Cherokee saw the misery and heartbreak of his people, he recalled that 25 years earlier, on March 29, 1814, he saved Andrew Jackson's life at Horseshoe Bend. He had plunged his steel tomahawk into the skull of a Creek Indian who had attacked the general. John Luska had 500 of his bravest warriors and scouts to help Jackson win this historic battle. Now seeing his people forced from their ancestral land, he said in tears to his eyes, if I had known that Jackson would have drove us out of our homes, I would have killed him that day at Horseshoe. So,
Well, see, when we listened to the movie the last week, it talked about the different, the first Cherokee, and then what's the tribe, the government, some of them got, well, there's three, can't say it stuff, it doesn't, the first people were called the old settlers. And then the next were, that to be the ones, either Bowles and all, they were before the Trail of Tears. And the group that came to the Richmore, that came to Oklahoma, and then the last ones were the big Trail of Tears, but most of the people left when they moved in that time. But they got a big argument going over it. But that's why a lot of the people that's in Texas, their ancestry goes back to the old settlers.
that talks about that somewhat. But Dragon Canoe, when he died, the next chief in line was Bowles. So he was the second chief. And that's what this was talking about here. John Reagan, with his memoirs and all this, said first met Bowles in the chief of, he was 83 years old and convinced that white blood ran through Bowles' veins. Now, there was a lot, that's right, he was Scottish. They said he was Scottish. And it also had Louisiana, this gets into this, as far as, lineage and all this, what you're talking about. Let's see, killed his father and murdered. Oh, here we go. Anyhow, John H. Reagan, who first met Bowles when the chief was 83 years old, he was convinced that the white blood ran through Bowles' veins. When he visited the Bowles before the Texas Cherokee War, he noticed that with interest that the Anglo characteristics of the Indian chief Bowles had no English head had an English head, sandy hair, and gray eyes. In every other way, he was Indian. It is said that Bowles' father was killed by the settlers from a North Carolina settlement when Bowles was a young boy, and the vengeful son killed his father's murderers when he was 14 years old. After that time, he hated all white persons from North Carolina. After Chief Bowles' death, Reagan began commissioned merchant from Reagan met a commissioned merchant from Shreveport, Louisiana, named Bowles, who was convinced that the dead chief was his relative. Before the Revolutionary War, the merchant forebears had lived in Georgia. They were killed by the Cherokees, and the exception of a small boy who was carried off to captivity, reared in the tribe. The Shreveport merchant was certain that Chief Bowles was that little boy to manhood. He may well have been. They couldn't prove it, but. And this right here, as far as known, Bowles is the entrance into the recorded history in 1792. Dragon canoe, known as the Savage Napoleon, chief of the Chickamauga Cherokees, died in the spring of that year in the town of Running Water on the Tennessee River. He was succeeded as town chief by John Bowles. Okay. As an auburn-haired, blue-eyed, half-blood Scottish Cherokee, about 32 years of age. Running Water was one of the 5 lower towns at the base of the Chattanooga Lookout Mountain. I've known people that went to Lookout Mountain. They said, yeah, that's where it's at. It was situated below present Hale Bar Lock and Dam in the state of Tennessee. Lookout Town on the east side of Lookout Creek became the rendezvous for many Cherokee chiefs. Bowles was one of them. All of them hated the whites. And it goes on that the towns and, you know, the ones in Texas, Nacogdoches, what's that other one? Ian,
I know in Rusk, there's a big,
yeah,
bunch of people live in there.
right, yeah. That's,
Gilman.
yeah, that's where it got in here, in this Reverend C.P.S. Washburn and his missionary. Then it started talking about Christianity coming out of this
But
as
you know,
well.
when you start looking at a lot of this,
This
a
book,
lot of
I tell you,
us,
it's
you
got a lot of
know,
info.
our blood, when you get to checking, it starts, you know, like the Cherokee starts folding back to the major tribe that got destroyed and strung all over.
Yeah.
But you know, you go like, I'm this, I'm that, I'm something else, and we're really all that.
We
We're
went
all
up there,
32nd cousins.
we went up to Telequa up there, and I got talking to this little gal, her name was Feather. And we was at the museum, and they've got the stomp grounds and all that. Really quite a place. And I told her about Dragon Canoe. She said, yeah, well, let me see. We got this other guy, wasn't named Red Wing or something. He was even better than Dragon Canoe. And then she started telling me about, hey, when we go out and we play lacrosse or stickball, she says how the game goes. She says, us women, we can bite, kick, scratch, hit, whatever. And them guys, they can't even use their hands. She says, we win. And they start off with 2,000 people. Once somebody gets knocked out, they just lay out there until they come through. They start playing again. Yeah. And they got marble games, archery, let's see, blowgun dart, yeah, at Telequa. Yeah. You've been to Telequa.
Oh, yeah, several times.
Yeah. But when we went up there, Steve Silcox, he said, I'm gonna go up there.
You've already told me.
It was good. It was really good. Anyhow, he said, this is the biggest powwow you'll ever see in your life. And they played all night, they powwowed all night.
Whatever happens to Steve, do we know?
He's still
He's
doing things.
still in our place village. He's still
Holiday
Village.
yeah.
He's still out in the village. His daughter moved in with him for quite a while, and his grandson.
He's
And
lost
he was
weight,
watching
but he
him.
would not believe.
Yeah, he doesn't come. We asked him today about coming.
He said,
Yeah, he said, "No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't know why."
Steve cut his hair. If you seen him, you wouldn't recognize him. He lost about 100 pounds, He's
He's got short hair.
Real good diet.
Summertime,
I'll tell you what, I'd
he has
like
to
to have
shave.
that, like, do.
Oh, before
Dedication.
we get going, what's her name, used to come all the time, from, Georgia.
Georgia?
She was supposed to be here tonight,
Was she?
but she said, your cousin,
Oh, Sylvia?
Sylvia, had left all her books, and she was to bring them here, and we could take them and use them, or whatever we want to do with them. And she said she just had a box of them.
Her cousin? You say that's her cousin?
Well, she died.
I know, but I mean,
Well, her.
oh, her cousin.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
and they're at the Cherokee, I mean, not the Cherokee, but the Choctaw.
Oh,
I see Georgia a lot.
yeah.
We've seen it, we've saw her in town.
And
Well,
she was
in
supposed to be
Ohio.
here, and she was gonna bring everything, and
Well, her and I
got
are
her
in
started.
the DAR together, Daughters of the American Revolution. Her and I are both in that same group.
But she's gonna bring, and when we get a chance, we can sit down and take some stuff and give it to people to get some progress.
Well, if you want to see somebody get a funny look on their face, tell them you're Native American and that I'm Cherokee. Well, I'm actually Cherokee and Sioux, but and then turn around and tell them I belong to the Daughters of the American
I was
Revolution
just wondering.
and the Daughters of the Colonies. And I told
She
them, I
fights
said,
with herself a lot.
I got four sides in my family,
You'd be,
and one of them goes this direction and the other goes.
you'd be amazed how many people Indians are Masons. There's a lot of them. Yep.
You know, we lived in Tennessee. In the next 2 or 3 weeks, I really missed that place because we had 60 acres. We had a creek run through the middle of the property. That creek was lined with Cherokee roses.
Oh,
Now, you know what a Cherokee rose is? It's, the roses are probably about that big
My
around.
little wild roses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Light pink, and
Yes.
every petal has 7 leaves on it that represents the 7 tribes. And the story goes that the woman's tears were during the Trail of Tears. The woman's tears, wherever they fell, the wild rose grew. Well, these bushes, and I mean they were wild, but they were prolific, and you couldn't hardly see any green for the pink, and you could smell them a half a mile away. And for about 3 or 4 weeks every spring, we had windows open. I mean, boy, you talk about aromatic, and it was. I really missed those roses. In fact, we had a lot of springs on our place. My niece named our place and made a big sign that went on the garage and on our mailbox, Rosewood Springs.
oh, that'd be
Over the roses in the spring.
What possessed you to come down here and leave all that?
Well,
It's a long
we
story.
invited a couple over for dinner. Now, the house, when we got it, looked like something the monsters had rejected.
It was built
I mean,
before the Civil War.
it was the place in its day. It was built in the real early 1800s. And in 1833, we lived in the line of community of Marshall County. The line of Marshall and her husband had the house built. So they decided to move to Lewisburg, and they gave that house to their daughter in 1833 as a wedding present. So that's and now we know in 1812 the land was sold on the courthouse steps in Fayetteville for back taxes. It started out as a land grant from the Revolutionary War, but we couldn't find out exactly when the house was built, but it was sometime between 1812 and 1830. Anyway, I spent years and a lot of money restoring this house. And it didn't even resemble what we bought. Well, this friend of ours, Gail Hidden, she, every time I'd see her, she said, Ed, I want to buy your house. Okay, Gail. I thought she just complimented us on all the work we'd done, because the people that had lived there came back to look at it, and they didn't even recognize the house. They were flabbergasted at what we'd done. Well, we had Gail and Bale over for dinner. And we're sitting there eating. Bill's there, Gail's here, Ellie's here, and we're sitting there eating. She says, Ed, sell me your house. And I says, okay. I'd bought $500 worth of material that morning, not redoing the bathroom. I had tile and everything. And she says, what do you take for it? I said, for what? What? I told you, sell me your house. You said, okay, what would it take to... I says, I don't know. I got 60 acres. I got the shop out there. I got that building. I got the house. I just threw out a number. She says, ooh, what would be your bottom dollar? I says, Gail, let me think about it. And I wouldn't even consider that from... She says, oh, okay. Well, we finished eating. Ellie and Gail, they cleaned off the table. We're having dessert. After dessert, we're drinking coffee. And she says, Bill, don't you need to go to the truck? Oh, okay. Here goes the truck. He comes back, he's got a checkbook and some papers. And he says, well, he says, you know, we're leaving for Greece Monday. He says, we'll talk about a closing date when we get back. He says, they're in no hurry, just whenever. I says, closing date on what? Gail said, you told me you said sell the house, and I said, okay. And she sat there and she said, oh, Bill, it's going to really run me short. Can you cover $10,000? He said, yeah. They write out a check. He writes out a check. He fills in a sales agreement and says, we'll talk about closing when we get back. And they left. Ellie's standing there, you just sold my house right out from under me. What are we going to do? I didn't even have it for sale.
Well, did you have a plan about where you were gonna go?
I told, she said, what do we do? I said, well, we got three choices. We can stay here unless Bill and Gail don't want us living with them. We can find a place here, or we can go back to Texas.
Oh, you've been to Texas already?
Oh yeah, I retired in Fort Worth. Our kids and grandkids is all in Fort Worth area, except the one we raised.
Okay.
So, in fact, when we lived in Fort Worth, we had a place halfway between Quickman and Gilmer, just off 154. So I put a compass, took the Texas map, put a compass there over to Grand Saline, drew a circle. I said, okay, let's find a place inside that circle, but I'm not getting any closer to Dallas than the Grand Saline.
Smart. Sound like when we.
What?
They built out
Maybe I'll sit down for
a community, what they call a community room, so they got a lot of kids on grandkids there. So they could have Christmas. We was there visiting after we moved, after they built on. And there was a minister there, and they showing him the house, his look. He said, I preached in churches smaller than this.
Old chef.
She wants to know something.
No, I was going to say something. You know, we mention the Caddo every once in a while. I went to Caddo conference last weekend that was up in Idabel at the Red River Museum. And there were a couple of points. They're going to have